Hi YouTube, my name is Jack, and today we are going to talk about the full moon. There is long-standing folklore associating witchcraft with the full moon. Witches gather on the full moon, like this is it's kind of a thing that everyone knows and that no one questions. And then, specifically in Wicca, there is an idea that you will read in every introductory Wicca book that you should do ritual on the full moon. Partly because we have a moon goddess, and this thing and that thing, they go together. But in practice, in reality, that ends up being very hard logistically. There's an idea in Wicca that we have Sabbats and Esbats. We have the 8 Sabbats over the course of the year, and then we do ritual on the full moon for Esbats. And there are 13 full moons in a year, which usually there are not, because the average length of a lunation is 29.5 days. But there's an idea. So, there's a poem by Doreen Valiente where one of the stanzas goes, 13 silver moons in the year are, 13 is the coven's array, 13 times that Esbit make merry for each golden year and a day. The witches, Wicca, full moons, this is no one questions this. In reality, it often doesn't happen like that. And the big reason is that society isn't structured in such a way to make that convenient or feasible for a lot of people. Right? Like, if the full moon is on a Tuesday and you have to get up and go to work on the Wednesday that comes after it, you're not gonna do that. There are covens that meet on the full moon. We will circle back to that point in a moment. But most of the covens that I know and have interacted with have some other schedule for organizing their meetings, and they will do the Saturday that's closest to the full moon, or they will just have fixed dates that they'll meet, the second Saturday of every month, regardless of what the moon phase is, or things like that. And the reason is that it's much more convenient to meet on a weekend. People have time to themselves. People are able to do that. People are able to work around it, But it frustrates me. The covens choosing to make that choice does not frustrate me, to be clear. You make the choices that are right for your group and for the people that you have. But I am really deeply frustrated that my religious observances have to sort of suspend the actual calendar that they should operate on in order to conform to a Christian calendar where Saturdays and Sundays are the days that we get off. And socially, we don't treat that as a Christian calendar. We treat it as a secular calendar. But it is a Christian calendar. The calendar that we use, certainly in the United States, as well as in most of Europe, is designed so that you have Sundays off because that's the Christian day of worship. And my days of worship, the full moons and the Sabbats, are not off unless they happen to coincide with the days that the Christians get off. And I find that immensely frustrating. Partly just from sort of a childish sense of it's not fair, but partly from a sense of I then have to do my ritual in a way that is less than ideal. I have to water down my rituals in order to get them to conform with the calendar that broader society allows. Because, there's a reason that those are the Sweetie, what are you doing? Excuse me. Okay, I'm not going to put you in timeout, but you have to promise to be good. Cats. What I was saying is that there is actual significance to the full moon. right? There's a reason that we have this idea that witches do ritual on the full moon and not on, like, 5 days before the full moon. There is actual significance to the dates of the Sabbaths. And, that it doesn't make or break a ritual to do it on whatever the closest convenient Saturday, but it means that we have to sacrifice some of that significance in a way that Christians in American society never do, right? Like, Christians in American society, predominantly, we're going to set aside like retail workers because that's a whole other layer of terrible. But like, Christians in American society don't have to push back celebrating Christmas to the nearest available Saturday. They get Christmas off, and I don't get Yule off, But within Wicca, like, I've said it before and I'll say it again, kind of the central thing in Wicca is celebrating the cycles of life and death. And we see those in nature really in three super prominent ways, and then there are other ways that they show up as well. But the three, like, super obvious ones that we encounter are the changing of the seasons, the rising and setting of the sun, and the phases of the moon. And those are the principles by which, in an ideal world, Wiccan ritual is timed, because those are natural ways of sort of finding expression for the magical energies and the magical themes that we're working with in our ritual. Right? The moon is at its height, at sort of the fullness of life, when it's full. And that's significant. Like, there's a reason that we celebrate ritual when it's at its zenith like that. All of this to say, I find it frustrating that I have to schedule my religion around a religion that I don't practice. Now, that leads me into what's going on this year. So, for anyone who is new to the channel, doesn't know some of the backstory here, I am relatively new to Salt Lake City. I moved here just over a year ago. And I have a seekers group going. I have a handful of people who are seeking initiation into a coven here. And they're phenomenal, and I love them. No one is initiated yet. No one is going to be initiated for some time, just because it's a thing that takes time. But because of that, I am practicing on my own right now. I am solitary. I'm a witch alone. And all of the ritual that I do by myself. And part of what that means is that I am not beholden to other people's schedules when I'm trying to figure out when to do ritual, right? I don't have to worry about, like, oh, well, like, Steve has work the next day and Catherine can't make it because she can't get a babysitter, and, like, don't have to deal with any of that. It's just me. And whether I do ritual or not really is entirely a matter of whether I get my ass up off the couch and go do ritual. So I made a commitment at the start of this year that since I am not currently beholden to a coven, to other people, I'm just going to do ritual on the actual days that in an ideal world ritual would be done. So I have made a commitment that I am going to do ritual on every full moon of this year, on the actual night of the full moon, regardless of what day of the week that is. And it's been great. Well, the ritual itself is great. I'm doing this partly as an experiment, but I really had gone into it not knowing whether it would make a difference or how much of a difference it would make to do my full moon ritual, like, on the actual night of the full moon every single time versus on the nearest convenient Saturday. And for me, at least, it has made a huge difference. Yeah. It really, really makes a difference. It's the difference between, I don't know, it's the difference between representation and reality, right? Like, ritual is weird and kind of ephemeral, and to a certain extent, you can just declare, like, tonight I am observing the full moon, even if it's a gibbous, like, but when you're in ritual and you're declaring, tonight I am observing the full moon, and the full moon is right there and you can see her, and that happens every single month, it changes something, and it feels much more potent to me, at least. I think there is also an element of, like, if we believe that magic has to do with the external world in some way, if we believe that it's not just all in our heads, then yeah, of course, the energy of the full moon is different from the energy of a gibbous moon. And that's not to say that a gibbous moon isn't good or worthwhile, right? It certainly is, but like, the best symbol for a thing is the thing itself. Right? The best symbol for a sharp knife is a sharp knife. The best symbol for a full moon is a full moon. And doing ritual every month on the actual full moon has been extraordinary. It's been a really, really wonderful experiment. Now, that said, if you are operating with a group, this can be a dick move. There are covens that do ritual on the actual date, on the actual full moon, on the actual Sabbath, regardless of what other people have going on. There are covens for which that works, depending on logistics and circumstances, but it can be a real dick move. If you have someone who's driving 3 hours each way for coven ritual, and they have to work the next day, you are asking them to, get off work at 5 o'clock on a work night, drive 3 hours to you, get to your place at 8. Ritual is, let's just conservatively, let's say ritual is done at 10. Then they have to drive 3 hours home, get home at 1 o'clock in the morning at the earliest, and then get up and go to work and be functional the next day. That is a lot to ask of someone. And I think in most circumstances, I think that's really an unfair thing to ask of someone, right? I understand that, like, we all make sacrifices. We all do what we have to do in order to make our religious practice work. But when you're running a group, you also have to, like, respect the people who are in your group and respect their time and not be a tyrant about it. And I think that if you have other people whose lives place demands on them, like that, or if someone has kids and needs to get a babysitter, like, you're going to get a babysitter from 5 p.m. to 1 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday? It's just, I think it's an unfair thing to ask of people. So I don't know that this is how I would schedule things, once there are initiates in the coven and once I'm coordinating with other people. I expect that I will go back to scheduling ritual on the nearest available Saturday. But, oh boy, this is better. Just as far as, like, the actual ritual part of it, this is better. And it makes so much of a difference. So that's all I've got for today. I guess this video was really just me whining, but I don't know. It's been a good experiment. It's been both of those things. I'm glad that I'm doing it. I'm getting a lot out of it. For other people, I would love to know, like, do you do ritual on the actual full moon? Like, do you observe that natural calendar, or do you observe the I do it when I don't have work the next morning calendar? Because I think there is practical value in doing it when you don't have work the next morning, but I've found that in terms of the quality of ritual, it makes such a difference, and honestly so much more of a difference than I had realized it would. So that's what I've got for today. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you soon.